So I've never been involved in chairman's anything. I went to one meeting because I had the time for our teams working on some preparation for chairman's right now. But my team, when I was in high school, never submitted. We never made it that far. It was like I started my sophomore year. That was the year the team was founded.
Yeah.
And by the time we figured out what we were doing my senior year, it was like never had time to submit chairman's at that point.
I think that's where the unit or the drones are right now. So this upcoming season was our 5th year. So
Okay. Yeah.
That's a beautiful time to start writing chairman's.
Yeah.
That's like the sweet spot where like you have enough to write and like you kind of have a hold on like that whole like robot design thing. So, well, I guess I don't know. I feel it's so intimate.
Do whatever you would like to
We'll
do.
wing it. Okay. So
Video.
what?
Should I just zoom in on you? Why don't you come sit on this side?
I want to
I
take,
sat behind the camera.
like a good.
Here, we'll go like this.
Okay. Okay.
We'll just zoom in on Monica.
Oh, that's not uncomfortable at all.
I didn't.
Okay.
And I won't give her the scowl.
Well, for the 3 of you here, my name's Monica Bravo. I am a hello.
Sliding in here.
Oh, no, you're
Come on
good.
in.
Come, please.
They heard you start talking, and it was just,
I am a sophomore at OSU. I was on Team 461, which is based out of West Lafayette, Indiana, which is home Purdue University, if you've ever heard of it. Good stuff. I was on 461 for like 4 years. 4 years. And I helped the chairman's team either write it or present it for 2.5 years. So Katie asked me to come and talk to you guys about chairman's. So I guess we were kind of talking, I would like to know like your knowledge with chairman. So you said that you've heard of it, you haven't really worked with it, but you're interested in it. Have you heard of chairman's before?
I'm on our team's chairman's committee.
Okay. Have you ever written a chairman's award or?
I'm working on the video part of it,
Okay.
so I haven't done much writing, but I've helped with some of the short answer a little bit.
Okay.
we have no knowledge.
No knowledge?
Other than it's an award that's given out.
Oh yeah, I presented the chairman's award last year.
Presented chairman's
I
award.
forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
Completely forgot. Yes, I did do that.
Okay. So we have a range of knowledge. Good.
Completely forgot it.
So chairman's is the whole like spiel of it is it's the most prestigious award presented to a team at each robotics competition, and it's meant to be presented to a team that best embodies the values and goals of FIRST, which I know is super vague and really hard to like wrap your head around, but with a lot of practice it makes sense. Each regional and district event awards one team with one award, and then that one team is invited to go to the World Championships and present their Chairman's Award there. You are automatically eligible to attend Chairman's, and then depending on who your sponsors are and all these different factors, you may or may not get paid, or your entry might get paid to go. If I remember correctly, at least when I was in high school, CAT would always pay for us to go if we won a Chairman's Award. They would pay for our entry fee to Worlds and our transportation fees.
Were they your one of
They
your
were
normal
our
sponsors? Okay.
I think CAT still does that, and then I know that there are several other sponsors. Pretty sure that NASA also does that, if you make it 2 Worlds with Chairman's. So there's always, this is my #1 favorite way of being eligible to go to Worlds. Because a lot of teams will sponsor you. Also, if you go to your school and you're like, hey, we won this thing and it's really cool and we're going to Worlds, they will most likely be okay with you going. If you're like, we won a thing, it's really cool. But that's just my 2 cents. Okay. So I have asked multiple teams, ask me, like, why would you ever want to present Chairman's? Like, it's a lot of work. Like, we don't really do that much. You know, we're more of a robot team. My personal belief is that Chairman's makes you a FIRST team. To me, FIRST is not just robots. It's a lot more than robots. It's a good time. So Chairman's is a way of documenting everything that your team does. So this is a great way for organizing your information for marketing and sponsor meetings. If you go to different companies around your town and you're trying to get them to donate money so that you can continue your robotics team, and you present them with everything that you present the judges for chairmans, that's impressive. That means that you have business-oriented people in your team, and you know what you're talking about, and you can specifically say what impact you have on your community and why you should continue having a robotics team. If you're having issues with your school, and your school is questioning whether you guys should keep the team, you can go to the school board, and you can tell the school board, look, this is the impact we have on this community, and this is why it's important to have a first team in the school. Which, believe it or not, I have had multiple teams tell me that they use their chairmen this way. Every time I went to talk to companies within my community, I always presented chairmen to them. We would have the chairman's team because they're the ones who are most knowledgeable on the impact of on the community, and we talked to them about what it meant to have a first team and why they should donate money. And almost always it works. Really like tugs at the heartstrings. It also helps diversify your team. So if you have students in your school that aren't really like math or science, but they like being creative and they like writing, especially if they like writing, you have a spot for them on your chairman's team. If you have someone that likes making videos, you have someone for them on your chairman's team. It's a good time. It prepares members for different skill sets. It helps prepare your team members to talk to recruiting for colleges, job interviews, public speaking, all of these different things that you don't really get if you're just a robot team. It helps your team analyze the programs that you have and set goals. So if you have a program that you think is really great, but over the years you've been writing about it in chairmans and it hasn't been growing, that's like one red flag that chairmans will show you that like alumni thinking back on it won't, if you know what I mean. It encourages you to make a difference within your own school and community. It helps build relationships with sponsors and mentors. And again, FIRST is a lot more than just robots. So it's a way of making your team more of a FIRST team. As far as criteria goes, judges look for growth. That's one of the things that they've been stressing a lot lately. Within the past couple of years, they've been really asking you about growth. How have you grown the FIRST program within your community? Have you used what FIRST has like set up for you, and have you used Junior FLL, FTC, and FRC? I have noticed a trend within judges that I've talked to within the past couple of years that this is what they're like gearing more towards to. They used to ask more, like, they used to ask a lot more about like what you did personally in the school. But now they're going towards this. How are you growing the program of FIRST? They also really stress partnerships. Partnerships with other teams, partnerships with other members, partnerships with sponsors, communities, and schools. I would say that those are like the top two things to make sure that you cover in your chairman's presentation, because those are what they will constantly ask you about. They'll definitely, within the past about 3 to 4 years, judges have been asking you to document everything. And this includes specific numbers. I had a judge ask me, we made a claim that having a FTC team like helped grow our FRC numbers, and all he kept asking was, okay, but what were the numbers? What numbers can you show me that it actually did affect your FRC? So we had to go through all of our documents and try to find those numbers for him. Impact, obviously, is something that they look for, which includes numbers. I can't stress this enough. Please have numbers on your impact, because they will ask you, and it is very stressful when they ask you, and you don't have a number to give them. And then the last thing that they look for is what the award stands for, which is if you are a model FIRST team. Do you use gracious professionalism? Do you help build these partnerships? Do you try to to spread STEM throughout your community? Yeah, I guess. Chairmans consist of a couple of different parts. You have your essay, which we've all heard about, I'm hoping. Um, your executive summary, which is those short response questions that you were like working on. It's the executive summary. Then the lovely 10-minute presentation. A video and talking to judges in the pits afterwards. My number one tip for this entire thing is please be cohesive. You want everything to be cohesive and to follow the same like trend. My best advice is that this should follow your team brand. If you have a very professional team, then my advice would be to have a professional presentation. Have the students go in with like ties and a dress, or like ties and like a button up. If you have a more like eccentric team that is really bright and colorful, and like their robot is bright pink and bright blue, then go into chairman's with that same mentality. You want to have a cohesive look to everything. So if you're the pink team, then go in all pink and be beautiful and be loud and obnoxious while still presenting. If you're a very sleek and like professional team, go in and really like make it a business meeting if you want to. But of course, always be professional when you're going in. Even if you're the loud, obnoxious team, be professional while you're loud and obnoxious. It can be done. As far as the essay is concerned, this is the part where a lot of people have the biggest issue, because it's the one that you spend the most time on, in my opinion. At least I think that's where you should spend the most time on. Your essay consists of 10,000 characters, including space and punctuation, and that sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You run out of room really, really quickly. This is where you should put all of the factual information on the team. So, try to mention activities that you do. If you are debating between putting a lot of activities and writing a little bit about each one, or going in depth about a few activities, my best advice is that you should go in depth about a few activities that make you stand out from everybody else. Don't embellish. I don't know. That's like my biggest pet peeve with chairmans, is people embellishing things or using certain language that they probably shouldn't. Embellishing just goes against everything that FIRST stands for, in my opinion. But you also definitely shouldn't undersell yourself. If you make an impact in your community, please write it, and write it with passion. In the essay, the thing that I think is most important is to write the essay with passion. Have a voice in your essay. If you write it with passion and you're passionate about what you write about and you really care about the impact that you're making within your community, it comes across to judges. Judges have to read anywhere between 2 chairman submission essays and 25 submission essays, depending on what competition you go to. So you want your essay to stand out. And one of the best ways to make it stand out is by writing like you care. I always found it towards the end of the essay writing session that I was running out of steam, and it's really hard to write passionate when you're staring at this stupid essay for so long, and you're just at that point you're so burned out. Take a break, come back, and write again. If you talk through it with someone, it will help you write with passion. And then, lastly, your essay is submitted through STIMS. A student representative will submit the essay, the executive summary, and the 4 pictures through STIMS. The executive summary is about 10 questions. It might change depending on the year, so make sure that you're reading the manual every year to make sure what changes. Okay. I don't know, I just feel... How are you guys doing? Do you have any questions? Yeah, feel free to interrupt me. STIMS? STIMS is the Student Team Internal Management System. Look at that, and remember. So, are you the head coach?
No.
Okay, so...
I'm actually a mentor for safety and training.
Okay, so the head coach registers the team through TIMS, which is the Team Internal Management System. And then STIMS is the student version of TIMS. So at the beginning of each year, every student has to sign up to the team through STIMS.
Okay.
And then you submit it through STIMS by the head coach going on TIMS and then appointing different students to be able to submit it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They actually merged it into
They
one
merged
system at this point. I think this past year, because they've like promoted me to one of the two top slots, so I have full control over the team now.
Oh,
But it's all one login at this point.
okay.
So
Okay.
That's awesome.
it makes it easier because you're not like, oh, this isn't working. This is the system. Oh, it's because this is STIMS. Yeah.
I knew that they were overhauling, but I couldn't. Look, I'm old. I just, I use VIMS, and that's all I can use now. I'm not allowed to use STIMS anymore.
I think that's the one I use.
Yeah. VIMS is for volunteers.
Yeah, I do field reset and stuff
Yep,
like
yep,
that.
you've signed up to VIMS. So look, now you can do it through one of them. Yeah, it's confusing, but at some point you'll understand it. Like someone somewhere might be able to tell you better than I can on where to submit it. But the point is, I remember. Don't forget about the executive summary, because I almost always forgot about the executive summary. It was always like something that was like really like in the back of my head before I submitted chairman's. Those are important because those are that's like the quick information that the judges can get to, instead of having to read instead of having to read through your entire essay. The judges can go quickly and like look at those quick questions. So definitely be careful on the word choice that you're using on the executive summary. Yeah.
You mentioned there was usually 10 questions, so the
Yes.
executive summary is something that they've already outlined for you?
Yes. Well, they do. It comes out with the administrative manual every year. So it's almost always it's the exact same questions every year, but sometimes they might change a question. So you can look up the 2015-2016 or 2016 game manual right now, or administrative manual right now, and those questions are still there, and you can answer those. And then when the 2017 administrative manual comes, you can switch out the questions that change. In my experience, I think in the 4 years that I did first, or that I was on a first team, I think it might, like 2 questions might have changed during that entire time. First tends to really like those specific questions, because they're useful to judges. Have you guys started writing chairmans yet? Okay. Have you guys started writing chairmans yet?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Just,
I'm pretty sure, weren't we part of your first German's submission? 4780?
Certainly last year, yeah. and yeah.
Because you guys invited us out here to practice, and
Yeah.
they were a mentor team for our team.
I mean, I would definitely put that in chairmans.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they did. And you went to nationals, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely in the in whatever we have so many chairman's docs. It's definitely in there somewhere, but yeah,
Okay.
so many chairman's docs.
So, I guess, so you guys have already started. My best advice would be to start as soon as possible. You want to give yourself enough time to write and rewrite chairmans as many times as you can. Because, with time comes a great essay. My co-writer and I would usually start very early in the season, sometimes the end of the previous season. We would start at least thinking about chairmans and thinking about what we wanted to write about. Usually what we did is after we presented chairmans, we would go through and we would talk about what we liked and what we didn't like, what the judges wanted to see and what they didn't want to see, what they asked questions about and what they didn't ask questions about. We would write that all down. We would put it away for a while, and then around May or June, we would look through that document and we would start thinking about what we wanted to revise for the next year. So that would be a very slow process, and then in about August, we would start thinking about maybe different ways of organizing our essay, or different themes that we might want, or what kind of direction we wanted to take our chairmans. Yeah.
So every year, was a completely different essay. You just didn't kind of tweak the old one that you had.
That was our way of doing it. Our, like, I don't know. I've met teams that just submit the same essay every year and just, like, update it.
Do they win?
I don't know, I'm trying to think of who does. The teams that I work closely with in Indiana that usually win would rewrite their essay every year. But I also think that if you have a team that is just starting to write chairmans and just starting to get into that mentality, then it would be useful to write an essay and then tweak it the next year and see how you feel. And especially because chairman's is such a, like, it's an exhausting process. So, and if you have mentors that have never done chairman's before, or students that have never done chairman's before, then you might want to, like, give them that practice of being able to, like, get into the swing of things before you fully, like, start rewriting every year, year after year after year. But I'm definitely a fan of rewriting chairmans every year because it helps you learn the information a lot better when you write chairmans from scratch, and it helps you make the essay yours. I think that presenters should be the same people who write chairmans because then you have, like, that personal connection to it, and your voice comes across when you write chairmans, and it can come across when you present too. So that's a very, like, team-specific question. It depends on the organization of your team, but I don't know. I'm a fan of rewriting chairmans. So we would start thinking about themes in August, and then around September, October, we would start, like, making a rough draft / very rough outlines of multiple different methods that we wanted to write chairmans. In no way would it be a finished essay, but we would, start jotting down ideas and have a really messy essay. Starting November, December, we would start refining maybe like 2 or 3 of the rough outlines / rough drafts, and we would turn them into semi-finished essays. And then in January, we would pick one of those essays, and we would say, this is the path that we want to take this year. This is how we want to organize our information this year. And then we would start completely refining it. The reason that I tell you to start writing early is because my senior year, 2 weeks before chairman's was due, we decided that we hated what we had written, and we decided to completely restart, and I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. So you definitely want to give yourself enough time to completely scrap everything and restart. Like, if you have a great idea, I'm all for scrapping everything and restarting if you think that, like, idea is amazing. It's a lot of work, so please start early. I think that every single person on your team should proofread. Not just because that's a lot of different eyes, but because I think every single person on your team should be able to know what is in the chairman's essay. You should have mentors proofread. You should have English teachers proofread because they like doing that, but, well, not really. They have practice doing that. But please give them your chairman's essay plenty of time before the deadline, because they are doing you a favor. You should have parents proofread, and most importantly, you should have non-FIRST community members proofread. Because these judges aren't always judges that know what FIRST is. They might have just been, like, some poor person that someone was like, hey, we have this cool thing happening this weekend, do you want to be a judge? And they stupidly said yes, and now they're involved. They might have no idea what FIRST is. They might have just had, like, a brief debriefing right before the event. So you should have it. The essay should make sense to people who are not in FIRST, which also goes along with that whole, like, sponsor thing. You should have some. Not should. I'm a very big fan of partner writing. So if you start speaking out loud to someone and then, like, let's see, I lost my train of thought. What I would normally do is we had 2 people writing chairmans. So we would have the 2 of us sitting at a table and then, like, a third person taking notes. So, or like both of us taking notes and then a third person taking notes. And we would just start like speaking. We would literally just start like vomiting out words and saying what we wanted to write down in Sherman's. And that to me is the best way to write with passion. Because if you're passionately speaking about like what you want to write and like how much that means to you, then you're going to come up with ideas on how to put that across on paper. I think you should write multiple different versions of Chairman's. Again, I mean, we were a little extra, so we wrote a lot of different like ways of a lot of different versions. What else? Personal deadlines. I can't stress how useful this is. If you give yourself a personal deadline that's like 2 weeks before the first deadline, then you're gonna save yourself a massive headache the day the Chairman's is due. If you say, okay, I'm gonna have this essay done Saturday, like January 25th, then that's gonna help you really like finish on time instead of rushing that last like day and a half of Chairman's. It will also help make everything very cohesive because you have time to think about your presentation and your video. What else? Oh, first definitions. The manual has definitions for certain words used in Chairman's. It has definitions for words like assisted, started, hosted. If you're unsure of like what you really did, the manual has those definitions for you, and I think that's a resource that not enough teams use. Because if you use certain words, they convey certain meanings to judges. In the presentation, you have a limited amount of time, and you want to have that time be spent wisely on questions that are really going to help you. And if you're if they're asking you questions about like clarifying what you did, using these words will help eliminate those kind of questions. Definitely a very useful source that I think personally not enough teams use. Presentation. Presentation is nerve-wracking. I did it. I hated every second of it, but I also kind of loved it. 3 students go in to a panel, like almost kind of like this room, and you have a panel of judges, and it can be anywhere between 2 and 3 judges. Really depends on the competition. And it's terrifying because it's a very quiet room, and you have all of these things you want to say, and you have a very limited amount of time to say it. In my opinion, this should be a lot more personal than your essay. I think this would be a great time to bring in personal anecdotes. It would be a great time to showcase the different types of personalities in your team. I think that the 3 students that you choose should be strong speakers and leaders on the team. These should be people who have had like hands-on experience with the team. On the other hand, I also think that you should bring in freshmen to this because one of the worst things that can happen to a fantastic Chairman's team is if you have all seniors do something or like one class do something for 4 years, and then when they graduate, you're screwed because no one knows how to do anything. So I think it's always a wise idea to have an underclassman go into the Chairman's presentation with you. We usually had 2 seniors and a sophomore or something like that, so because sophomores have had some experience with the team and maybe they have been to certain events that you're talking about. And then they can continue on that like Chairman's presentation trend. Right now, the 2016 manual says that you can have up to 12 minutes. With up to 7 minutes of setup and presentation time. I wish I could tell you exactly what that meant, but it changes per competition. I have had judges start the clock the second we walk in. I have had judges start the clock after we've come in, we've introduced ourselves, we've handed them things, we've set everything up, and then they're like, okay, are you ready to start? I'm like, yes, thank you so much for asking. So it really depends on the judges. During this like 7 minutes, you have time to like set up a poster if you want, or like set up your visual. We always had a scrapbook, so we would always like lay out a scrapbook in front of them, and we would give them like a little like judges kit. This is what's the name? You have time to set up, and then you start your presentation. This is the time where you should be using your visual. I think that you should think carefully about what your visual is. Again, I think it should go with your team brand. Are you going to show your video? Are you going to show a little scrapbook? Are you going to use a poster that has a bunch of pictures on it? I've seen some very creative visuals. I had a team bring in a tree, because their chairman's theme was about like how they're a family tree, and they had a literal tree. It was hilarious and confusing all at once. I've heard of teams bringing in like a fake cake because it was their anniversary, and their chairman's theme was about how like the layers of a cake make up the anniversary and how like the team has changed. So I say feel free to bring in like whatever kind of visual you want in life. As long as it like matches your team brand, I'm all for it. So after this nerve-wracking presentation, you have 5 minutes of questions and answers, which might be more terrifying than the presentation part. You want to try to answer the questions thoroughly, but quickly. You want to give them as much information as possible at as little time as possible. So this is, in my opinion, where you should be rehearsing words that are like really dense words that mean a lot, but only, take up 2 syllables. Words like posted, assisted, are all like words that you should be thinking about, and you should have, when I always presented, I always thought of like having a word bank on like words that I could have in my back pocket that could help me answer questions quickly. You want to make everything clear. You don't want to waste time by the judges having to ask backup questions because they weren't unsure on what you said that first time. I've heard teams answer questions really vaguely, and then like kind of be like, that was good, right? And then the judges just have like 5 more questions after that. My best advice is that your team, your chairman's presentation team should think about what categories each person's going to ask. For example, my senior year, I still remember, my categories were, I was going to ask any questions about our Boy Scout program, any questions about our elementary school program, and any team history questions. Like, those were my questions. If they asked them, I knew it. Because if you know what categories you're going to answer, then you don't spend that valuable time like kind of like looking at each other and having that uncomfortable exchange to be like, are you going to answer? Am I going to answer? And then you also can rehearse those like answers. Like you can have those like preset answers ready to go. Practice questions. There's a lot of great documents out there that have a lot of like pre-made questions for you that are like your stereotypical chairman judge questions. One important question that they always ask you is, why do you deserve to win chairmans? I think there is one competition I've been to where they didn't ask me that question in 3 years. So definitely be able to at least answer that question. Lastly, right now, they're allowing one adult mentor to go in. They're only allowed to give you feedback. They're not allowed to like talk during the presentation unless it's a translation issue. This might change this coming year because they keep flip-flopping back and forth on what this mentor can do or if they can go or not. Definitely take advantage of this. Have a mentor there. Just sit there and watch. Take notes of everything. Take notes on what the judges are looking at, who they're looking at, if they're distracted by something another student is doing while a different student is talking. That mentor is extremely valuable because the students who are presenting are completely focused on something else. They might be nervous, they might be like looking at a specific judge. It's important to have that like extra set of eyes. And your written feedback as of right now, is not automatically given to you. So you have to go and like persistently ask the judges until they give you the feedback. Some competitions I've been to are like automatically given to you. Others are like, yeah, we'll give it to you, and then like, they like never gave it to us. I think this feedback is crucial because it helps you for future presentations. And not just in that season, but for the upcoming years. The more feedback you have, the better. So I think it's extremely important to just like pester people until they give you the feedback. Obviously, maybe like wait until after they've judged and then pester them. Or maybe after the award is submitted. As far as the video is concerned, 1 to 3 minutes long. How long have you been working on your video?
I mean, we've got like a storyboard worked out, and we've been kind of taking like kind of, I don't know what's the right word for it is. We're just taking footage at like outreach events and stuff, and just so we have stuff to work with. And we're kind of starting to work on like who's going to talk about what in the video as of yet. So I don't know how long it's been, but that's about where we're at.
I love it. Okay, that's a really good place to be right now. I'm very impressed. The thing about the video, I love the video because it's like it just like shows like such a professional like thing about like robotics. Like you can show it off. You can be fancy and put it at your pit, or when you have like a sponsor event, you can show it. The end of the year banquet. I'm a big fan of the video. The thing about the video is that you're not judged on your video. It's not the focus of the award, but it is important. It can sometimes be used as like a tiebreaker. But the important part about it is that you have to turn it in. If you do not turn it in, you are not eligible for an award. Okay. 5 years ago, it used to be that you couldn't have a question and answer period after your presentation if you didn't turn it in. I think the rules as of right now are that you cannot present whatsoever if you do not turn in your video. My best advice is have it saved about 5 different places, have like 9 different people on the team know where it is, have every single person have a copy of it. I cannot stress enough, please don't forget your video. I mean, we forgot our video in 2011, and I still get told stories about how miserable of a time that was. You don't want to spend all of this time preparing for something and then at the last second not be able to do it. Your video can include original footage, voiceovers, photos, and interviews. I'm a very big fan of having student and mentors speak in the video. And if you can like find an alumni, or if you can find alumni to speak, also go with it. Because I think that just says a lot about the legacy of your team. Your videos should be clean is like my best advice. It should look nice. Don't forget to spend time editing the video. Just like an extra 2 hours of work can make a video look a lot nicer than other videos. It should also match your presentation and essay. If you have like a professional presentation, maybe don't have weird sound effects during your video. You know, it should all have this cohesive like look to it. Turn in your consent form. You can't turn in your video without the consent form. It's like the last thing that you're thinking about that day, but make sure that it's printed and filled out. I've had to print out my consent form multiple times at presentations, and I'm sure that the Indiana First crew loves me for it. I mostly just pester someone until they print it out for me, and then I sign it really quickly. Themes. Oh boy, themes. Okay, themes are great. Themes can be not so great. Really depends on what theme you choose. I think themes are great for teams that are just starting to write chairmans because it helps you organize your ideas. If you have, like for example, that one team that had the cake. I can't remember what team it was. It was their 10-year anniversary, and so they had they were talking about the layers of cake and the different layers of the team, and that helped them physically organize their essay. They started off writing about how the team started, and then they started talking about like different shifts in the time periods of their team, and then like the frosting on top was this new season and the new growth that they were making. And there was something about a candle, but I can't remember what it was. I think your themes should really reflect your team brand. I cannot stress this enough. It's like, I think it's what makes or breaks the chairman's team is how cohesive everything is and how how professionally together everything is. So like the Killer Bees, you know, they're known for their bee thing. So they've had chairmans about a honeycomb. They've had chairmans about like a beehive. Like, you know, everything matches that bee theme, and it's beautiful and it's very cohesive and it's very sleek. First, as always, loves acronyms. We had a chairman's submission that was second, STEM and engineering, something opening new doors. So like, that's one way that you could go through themes. You could make an acronym and that relates to your team, and then organize your essay that way. You could have super cheesy themes. You could have professional themes. Love themes. My best advice is to pick a range of themes. Go from like one super, super cheesy theme to like maybe think of quite a few acronyms that you could make for your theme. And then have a very, very extremely professional essay. Or at least like outline all of those things. And then you can sit down as a team and you can think of what you want to talk about. Pick whatever feels right to you is what I would say. Lastly, my resources. The first manual is amazing because it has a lot of information in it. It's also terrible because it's really hard to read. As someone who's been in first for 7-8 years, it's so confusing. They don't make it easy on you. They use a lot of words and it's never makes sense to me. But definitely read it. I would say read it a lot of different times. Chief Delphi has this wonderful document called A Comprehensive Guide to Chairmans. It's a couple years old now, but it is a beautiful document. It's like, I want to say like 15 pages long. And it is really a comprehensive guide to chairmans. It will tell you everything you ever wanted to know about chairmans as of 2013. Definitely cross-reference information from the manual because the manual is going to be the most up-to-date on rules. There's always rule changes. First really likes rules changes. So I think that Chief Delphi document is something that not enough teams know about. It's called A Complete Guide to Chairmans. That's what it's called. Past winners will also... Right now, on the first resource page, there's videos of past winners, but that they just started this initiative last year, so there's only 1 year of it. If there's a team that you really admire for chairmans, like Symbotics, Killer Bees, Wildstang, those are all amazing chairmans teams. Go to their websites. A lot of teams will post their chairman's essays and videos from past years. I can personally, Team 461 has every single chairman's Woody Flowers and chairman's video that we have ever written or made is on our website. I still get flashbacks every time I go to the website and I'm like, oh look, 2012 chairmans. These are amazing resources for you because it gives you a sense of like what they do. Don't copy their essays. Obviously you can't because you haven't done the same things. But it's a good like template to look at. The first resource page is amazing. Again, it has all of those videos from past winners. A resource that's, I think, important is community members. If you have people who are public speakers for that public speak for a living, lawyers, politicians, teachers, school board members, all these people are people who professionally speak, and they are most of the time they're trying to convince people to do something. Those would be great resources to talk to within your community because not only does that build a partnership with people in your community, which is great for chairmans, but it also will give you like a different point of view on it. And it also, you know, it's always good to network. I think that's pretty much all I have. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. I'll be more than happy to like read through chairman's essays if you really want me to, if you give me enough time to. I am a college student. I don't know what else to tell you. I've helped a lot of different teams write a lot of different chairmans. I can give you my best advice. It's not always the best advice, but it's what I will think is best. Yeah. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
You said you give your judges a judge's kit.
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
Okay, so we usually change it. So our team has like team wristbands and then like team pins. So most years we would give each judge like a wristband and a pin, right? So we'd like set it in front of, kind of like bribing judges. Like just like set it in front of them. Let's see, I've seen teams put like little like candy in a little bag and then like snippets of like information with like almost like a business card's worth of information and like give it to judges. What else? I think my senior year we gave judges a like handout that had like bullet points of information as we went along. So I don't know. I'm not really sure why we ever did it, but I just like it's so deeply ingrained in me that that's like what you do. So it depends on the team. You don't have to. I don't know.
So would you consider that a best practice?
I don't know. I'm thinking like now that I'm saying it out loud.
I mean, that could be a good research project.
Yeah.
Look,
I don't know. Like I can't see how it would hurt you.
I will personally go through and see what I can find in my own challenges, and I'll email you
Okay.
and let you know
Let me
exactly
know.
what I found.
Okay.
And anybody else who wants to be on the distribution,
That'd be great.
I think I have yours
You
through
should
Mr.
have
Walsh.
What's up?
So when you say you give them a scrapbook, do you like just give them something to look at, or do you like give it to them and say, here, keep this?
Okay, so the reason that we always did a scrapbook was because that's like a visual cue on like a change of topic. So what we did is we made one scrapbook for the entire season. So we walked in. One person had like the things, the pins. Another person would have the scrapbook, and another person would be like gripping onto the video. So you walk forward, you put the scrapbook on the table, and then you open it, and then each time a new person would speak, they would like flip the page. So that was like a visual cue to the judges that like we're changing topics now. And then the judges would keep it for all throughout like the judging, and then they would give it back to us at the end.
Gotcha.
They will almost always ask you if you want them to keep it. You want them to keep it, like until judging, and then they'll give it back to you with the written feedback / video.
Alright.
I can't think of a reason why you would not want them to keep it during judging, but always be like, no, it's yours. Like, if worst comes to worst, you can make a new video. Or you can make a new scrapbook if you need to. But I always liked scrapbooks because it was a visual cue. I've seen people... Theoretically, you can also have PowerPoints, but I've never really been in a chairman's room that was like equipped for a PowerPoint. I've been in the basement in a changing room, like a locker room. I've been in some really sketchy classrooms that I'm not entirely sure if they were classrooms, but they kept calling it a classroom. I've been in storage units. Oh, I know what's important. When you're going into your presentation, talk to the people before you. Sometimes there's going to be, like, every competition, the poor chairman's judges get stuck in this room that was, like, never what they wanted, but they always get put there anyway. Talk to the people that went before you. Is there anything that you should be, like, looking out for? does one of the judges like have a really heavy accent that you weren't expecting? Is there a really loud fan in the back of the room that will make you have to scream the entire time? That's happened to me. Is there did the judges seem nice, or were they like open to like having fun during the presentation, or were they more like strict and just wanted to know the information? This is all information that's extremely valuable for you, and definitely comes from talking to the teams before you. I always like to sign up right after lunch. Right after lunch, because that was like enough time to like prepare and like not so much time that I like had an anxiety attack before we presented. So that was like enough time to talk to different teams. Definitely, Ohio's different because Indiana's a district, but especially if you guys move to districts, you're going to get used to the same teams presenting chairmen over and over and over again. Befriend them. They're kind of your competition, but like also befriend them. You can share information. It's great. Share resources. We've shared glue with a lot of different teams because we tend to leave our scrapbook making for the last second. So, useful information, useful partnerships. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is kind of a basic thing, but what's the room setup when you're doing the chairman's presentation? I mean, you sit, I guess there's a table that you're sitting across the judges?
So usually the way that it's set up is there's the judge assistant is standing outside, and you have those lovely white signs that say chairman's this way, and it's almost always down a really like dark and sketchy hallway, and you're like, where am I going? It's scary. It's terrifying.
The meat grinder.
It's always in however many times it's presented, it's always down a scary hallway. So you're walking down this hallway. There's a sign that says chairman's this way, and you're like, great, that's me. Then the lovely judge's assistant usually tries to calm you down right beforehand. And then you see the other team exit, and then you give them around like 5 minutes. I always say get to your chairman's presentation early. Even if you're like, there's like, you watch 3 teams walk out before you, get there early, you don't want to get there late. So then you walk in. It depends on the venue. Like, I think that this would be a great chairman's, like, presentation room, as long as you, like, move these couches. Usually, there's a table just like that, that has 2 to 3 judges. I've always heard there's 3 judges. I think that's a myth. Most of the time there's 3. Yeah, right? I've only had 3 judges, like, 3 different times. And everyone's like, no, there's 3 judges and chairmen. I don't think there are. Most of them, like, I've had so many chairman's presentations where there's 2 judges. You're like, this is terrifying. There's theoretically 3 judges. They sit in this table, and then most of the time we stood like 2 to 3 feet away from the table in front of them in like a nice little line, and then like step forward when you speak, and then the rest is like a free-for-all. There might be a giant fan in the background that makes a lot of noise. There might be some weird clanging going on. I think it's best to prepare your chairman's presentation with so many distractions around you so that you can like present it forwards and backwards with like a screaming child next to you, with like in dead silence. I also think that it's a good idea to practice your chairman's presentations in different rooms and in different orientations. Most of the time, I would say that the door to the room is either to your side or behind you, but I also think that it's valuable to practice with the door being in front of you, because then you have a visual distraction of people walking by. Like, these are all things that like you don't really think about when you're practicing chairmans, but when you're actually presenting, if you're so used to practicing one way, it completely like messes you up. Also, when you're presenting, take off everything off of your wrist and fingers. Because if you're sitting there like twirling a bracelet constantly, the judges are going to stop paying attention to the person talking, and they're going to be paying attention to the person take everything out of your pockets. I'm trying to think of all of the things that we like ran through right before chairman's. And just like take a really big breath like right before you go and walk in with a smile and professional. You don't want to walk in like frantically and confused and like who has the video. You want to walk in confidently and like you know what you're talking about. If you've prepared like you most likely will, you will be fine and it will be it will go smoothly. And you are the best person to talk about chairman's at that point in time. Does that answer the question? That was a little more than you asked for, but
That's fine.
I thought of it and I figured it was good advice, so I should say it.
That's awesome.
Any other questions? 2 years later, because we were able to say that 3,000 Boy Scouts have gone through our Merit Badge program, and we have expanded this program to show this, and we have made partnerships with teams like that. So like that's my personal example. 868 won chairman's because of the partnerships that they had formed within their community. So it really depends. If you have something that stands out, and if you're a very young team, and you only do like 2 outreach events, but those are like outstanding outreach events that every team should really do, then you can definitely win. I don't think that age has anything to do with chairman's. I think it's about the partnerships that you form and what events you're really talking about.
Interesting. Thank you.
Everyone has a chance.